Hello and welcome to part 4 of the academic English course from Simple-ESL. This lesson is going to focus on academic augmentation, data commentary and advanced writing techniques for academic success. Now, as always, this course is aimed at a C1, C2 level, so looking for a good level of fluency to be able to build on your language skills and to be able to write in an academic way. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to construct logical academic arguments. You'll be able to interpret and describe data effectively. We're going to use cohesive devices and we're going to be able to write with precision and academic tone. And this is the thing that we have been building for the entirety of this course. So we are trying to get to a point where we can write those essays and we can sit in an academic setting at university, at school, and to be able to write in a cohesive way. And we're going to start with our grammar focus, noun phrases for academic writing. In academic writing, we often use noun phrases to make sentences sound more formal, concise, and sophisticated. A noun phrase is a group of words built around a noun, often including adjectives or other details to make it more specific. For example, the simple version, the results were surprising. We can adjust this. The academic version, the unexpected results of the experiment were significant. The second version sounds more formal and efficient because it combines information into one structured phrase rather than two shorter phrases. So combined information. So noun phrases help to pack more information into fewer words, avoid repetition of simple sentence patterns, it was, and can create a more academic and analytical tone. So the typical pattern would have adjective plus noun, noun plus of plus noun, adjective plus noun plus of plus noun. So an example, the careful analysis of the data revealed new trends. The rapid development of technology presents challenges for educators. So let's try to rewrite these phrases using noun phrases. The research was important. It helped the study. Can we make this into one phrase, one sentence? The importance of the research helped the study. Let's try another. The teacher gave feedback. It was helpful. Can we make this sound more sophisticated? The teacher's helpful feedback improved student understanding. So this way we're trying to merge into one precise phrase and trying to avoid repeated phrases. Now, longer sentences are not always better. Clarity and concision matter most. So you want it to be concise and clear. We're not just looking to make sentences long for the sake of being long, but this can combine two phrases into one noun phrase. In academic writing, especially in reports and research papers, it's important to describe data clearly and precisely. So here are some useful vocabulary that we're going to use to describe data. We have key verbs. These can describe an action or a movement in the data. So to increase, to decrease, to fluctuate, stabilize, peak, decline. So one more time, repeat after me. Increase, decrease, fluctuate, stabilize, peak, decline. So these can describe action or movement in the data. We can use key nouns to describe the type of change or pattern. So growth, reduction. To fluctuate becomes fluctuation. Stability and rise. So Here are some examples of how we can use this. So we can use this to make more formal and make our writing sound more academic by combining these with adverbs and adjectives. So we can combine these. Increased significantly, decreased gradually, showed a sharp rise, experienced a steady decline. Here are our verb-based and noun-based examples. Starting with the verb-based, the percentage of graduates increased significantly in 2023. Our noun-based example, there was a steady decline in participation over 5 years. Notice that both sentences describe the same information, but one uses a verb, the other uses a noun. This variety helps your writing sound more advanced and more fluent. So I'd like you to practice. Write 2 sentences about data trends. My examples: the number of international students increased sharply between 2015 and 2020. The gradual rise in online course enrollments during the pandemic. There was a gradual rise in online course enrollments during the pandemics. I would encourage you to use the adverbs and adjectives to describe how the trends changed. So slightly, dramatically, gradually. If you use verb and adverb, noun and adjective, these are the common academic structures. Okay, so practice doing this. Write your own sentences around a data trend. When writing or speaking about graphs and charts in an academic situation, your goal is to describe the data accurately and objectively. We need to focus on what the data shows and how it changes, what patterns are visible, without guessing and exaggerating. This skill is essential for writing reports, summaries, talking about research, or presentations. When analysing visuals such as bar charts, line graphs, or pie charts, we can think about identifying what the chart shows. For example, this line graph shows changes in student enrollment between 2010 and 2020. We can describe patterns and changes over time. Use the key verbs and nouns that we've learned, such as increase, decrease, fluctuation, rise, growth, stability. Try to avoid overgeneralization. We don't want to make assumptions or opinions. Instead of saying everyone prefers learning online, you could say the data suggests that students enjoy learning online. My example of a good statement we can make about a graph or chart. The data illustrates a gradual rise in online course enrollments between 2020 and 2024. This sentence is clear, neutral, and descriptive. It tells us what happened, when, and doesn't add an opinion. It just gives us the facts and information about the chart. Data commentary. So what is this? Data commentary goes beyond simply describing numbers or charts. Instead, it interprets the data, explaining what the trends mean, highlighting patterns, and then talking about possible reasons for these patterns and the implications. We can use linking words to connect contrasting ideas and to make commentary sound more analytical. We have however. This is used to describe contrast. Okay. We can also use although or while. This can introduce a concession. Okay. We also have whereas. This can be used to compare 2 trends or groups. Very useful for when we want to compare and contrast and to analyze the information. We want to highlight a relationship or contrast or implication. We want to avoid opinionated or emotional language and focus on logical analysis. We can use these words to combine 2 pieces of information and create meaningful observations. So for practice, I'd like you to write 1 data commentary sentence using linking words such as however, although, or whereas. An example answer. Although the number of publications rose, citation rates remain stable. The results improved in the 2nd semester. However, attendance decreased. Science students performed better in written assessments, whereas art students excelled in presentations. Use descriptive sentences and add interpretation. What could be the reason for this data? We can come off the back of this and use it to create our own opinions. So we want data, the contrast, the cause, then the implication. Sales increased significantly. However, customer satisfaction declined. What does this indicate? Indicates a potential quality issue. So we can use formal linking words as well as informal ones, like but or so. So we can use but or so. In an academic setting, we're trying to use other words. However, although, while, whereas. So create your own sentences and then off the back of that, give your opinion on the reason why these things happen. We want to use the data to back up our views and our ideas. Comparative and superlative structures. These can be used to compare data, opinions, and or results clearly and precisely. These forms are very common in reports, essays, and research discussions because they help express differences and extremes in a formal, objective way. Comparatives compare two items, ideas, or results. They are formed using ER or short adjectives or more plus the adjective for longer ones. So we have our first example of a comparative. Online learning is more flexible, more plus the adjective, than traditional methods. We also have the shorter version. The result is better than last year's findings for shorter adjectives. Superlatives compare three or more items, showing the highest or lowest degree. Using short adjectives, we can have it can be formed using EST for short adjectives. Okay, so we'll go into that a little bit more in a second. But the other form, we have most or least plus the adjective for longer situations. The group projects are the most effective form of collaboration. This was the least successful experiment in the study. So this is how we can build this up. If we want some more help with this, there is now a chart on screen with the adjective, the comparative, and the superlative. Using this information, we can now start to build our answers. Write one comparative and one superlative sentence about academic habits or academic study habits. My example: studying in the library is more productive than studying at home. Comparison, comparing two things. Superlative, comparing more than two things. Morning study sessions are the most effective for concentration. Any other study sessions? This is the most effective. So we can now use this chart to know when we're using comparatives or superlatives. Comparing two things, comparing more than two things. We have the adjectives, comparative and superlative. Academic writing, we often build arguments. This means presenting a clear position and supporting with logical evidence. A strong argument doesn't just state an opinion. It explains why the opinion is valid, supports it with research examples, and considers other perspectives before concluding. So this is how we can build a successful and effective academic argument. Claim: the main idea or stance. My example: online learning provides greater accessibility to education. Evidence: we want data, research, or examples to support this. Recent studies showed in the OECD 2023, it's a study, show the flexible schedules increase student participation rates. There's my evidence. You can put in a counter argument to acknowledge other viewpoints. However, some researchers argue online learning reduces opportunity for social interaction. And we can conclude: conclusion of the points, the summary of your position. However, or overall, while online learning presents social challenges, its accessibility benefits make it a vital tool for modern education. I would like you to create your own sentence, your own argument. Look at the example paragraph on screen. Identify each element and build your own short argument. So pause right now, read the paragraph, identify each element and create your own argument. Now, empathetic structures. We use these when we want to put emphasis on a key idea to make it stand out. It's used to highlight important information. We have special sentence patterns to highlight important information clearly and formally. We can draw the reader's attention to what matters most. When we use forms like it is that, we could say what is. Let's see some examples. So, empathetic structure, it is or was, the emphasized word, and then that. It is innovation that drives progress. What is noticeable is the increase in collaboration. This is another form, so we can use what plus the clause plus is or was and the emphasized information. What is noticeable is the increase in collaboration. These structures sound formal and are common in academic essays or writing. We can see the structures on screen now. Use these structures to create 2 of your own empathetic sentences. And I want you to relate them back to education or research. Here are academic connectors. We use connectors or linking words to show clear relationship between ideas. They help the reader follow your logic, whether you're showing contrast, giving emphasis, or explaining results. Using them correctly improves both the cohesion and the formality in your academic writing. So we can use it for contrast, used to show the difference between opposing ideas. However, nevertheless, in contrast. So my example, the results were promising. However, further research is required. You can use it for emphasis, to highlight or reinforce an important point. Indeed, in fact, particularly. The findings were particularly relevant to higher education policy. We have it for consequence, used to show the result or outcome. Therefore, thus, as a result. Funding decreased, therefore, fewer participants could be included. I want you to use these connectors. Complete the sentence with the suitable connector. The study was limited. It still provides useful insight. Can you give me an example of a connector we could use? This is contrasting. So we want to use either however, nevertheless, or in contrast. Online learning is flexible. It can also isolate the learners. This once again is contrast. So we would use either however, nevertheless, or in contrast. I would say however. Online learning is flexible. However, it also isolates learners. So any of these will be useful if grammatically correct and logically connected. So we can use these interchangeably. A great way to juice up your language. Practice these academic connectors. This vocabulary is really useful. Listening focus, okay? Understanding academic presentations. It's important to focus on how the information is organized when listening to a presentation. Most presentations follow a clear academic structure. An introduction, a method, the findings, and finally a conclusion. As you listen, try to identify where the speaker is in the structure. For example, if they're introducing the topic or when they're explaining the results. You should listen for signposting language, phrases that guide the audience through the talk. These include expressions like, first, I'll explain. We're in the introduction. Now, let's move on to. We're going to another section. To summarize. We're in the conclusion. These phrases help you predict what comes next and make it easier to follow ideas. Finally, pay attention to transitions between points. A good presenter will connect their ideas smoothly, so recognizing these links helps you to understand how arguments and data fit together. Now, I would like you to listen or read a sample presentation. Go find a TED Talk online, listen, and summarize the key points. I'll read out an example summary here. The presentation began by introducing the topic of climate change and its impacts on agriculture. The speaker described their method, a survey of farmers across 3 regions, and presented findings showing decreased crop yields. They concluded by suggesting policy changes to support sustainable farming. The signposting language included phrases such as, first, let me explain our method, and finally, I'd like to conclude with some recommendations. By using a signposting language, you can see I was able to pull out all of the information, get some notes written down about the basics of what that presentation was about. Practice, watch yourself a TED Talk, and then write down your notes. Writing for cohesion and paragraph unity. To make cohesive paragraphs, we need to make our ideas easy to follow. Cohesion refers to your sentences and ideas and how they connect to one another, while paragraph unity means everything in the paragraph focuses on one clear main idea. When these elements work together, your writing feels smooth, logical, and purposeful. Let's take a look at this first example. The essays discuss education and technology. Social media is also mentioned. These are 2 disconnected sentences. They don't clearly show how the ideas relate. The mention of social media feels off topic because it doesn't link to the main point about education. It doesn't feel like it's connected. So the improved version. The essay discusses how technology supports education through digital learning tools. Here the focus is clear. Every part of the sentence contributes to the same central idea. How technology is used in education. The link between key terms and technology and education makes the writing feel unified and cohesive. For your practice, I would like you to rewrite one of your own paragraphs to improve cohesion. So write a paragraph, and now let's improve this. So focus on one main idea per paragraph. Use linking words and phrases such as in addition, for example, as a result, therefore, to connect your sentences. Remove any information that feels unrelated or breaks the logical flow. So an example, students use laptops for studying. Some enjoy watching videos online. Technology is changing classrooms. Much improved version. Students increasingly use laptops for studying, which shows how technology is transforming modern classrooms. This is much improved because it shows a logical through line. It has removed unnecessary information that's unrelated or breaks logical flow. So why don't you practice with one of your own paragraphs, perhaps from earlier in the course? Try to improve this and use the information here to make a cohesive and unified paragraph. Augmentation language. This is used to express opinions, analyze evidence, and show critical thinking in a formal, balanced way. These expressions guide the reader and make your reasoning clear. So let's look at some examples of useful phrases. It can be inferred that. This is used to draw logical conclusions from evidence, even if it wasn't directly stated. For example, it can be inferred that students receive feedback more often and perform better academically. Evidence implies. This phrase is useful when we want to connect results or data to a broader idea. For example, the evidence implies that digital learning tools improve student motivation. This supports the argument that. Use this when we're connecting findings and ideas to a main claim or theory. This supports the argument that sustainable practices can reduce long-term costs for business. This is a great example. A possible limitation. This is important for academic balance. It shows that you recognize there's weaknesses or gaps in your research. A great way of showing this. A possible limitation is that the study only included participants from one university. This shows there's room for improvement and a way you can improve the study. So these expressions will help you sound analytical and objective, two key qualities in academic writing. For practice, I would like you to use one of these phrases to start a sentence related to your own field of study or research. Okay, here are some example sentences. It can be inferred that early exposure to reading improves long-term literacy skills. The evidence implies that hybrid working increases employee satisfaction. This supports the argument that renewable energy is essential for sustainable development. A possible limitation is that sample sizes were too small to generalize the results. I would like to say that doing this will help you to reinforce your confidence, and it's a great way to show your academic vocabulary and flex your muscles a little bit with your language. Some common mistakes with academic augmentation. Even strong writers can weaken their own arguments with these common mistakes. Okay, so we want to avoid using emotional or subjective language. Academic writing should sound reasoned and measured, not personal or exaggerated. Phrases like definitely the best or I think it's amazing express opinion rather than evidence. Instead, we aim for neutral evidence-based language, such as findings suggest that, it is widely accepted that. Second, avoid unsupported claims. Every statement we make should be backed up by research, data, or examples. If you claim that technology improves learning, you should include evidence or reference the studies that support this view. Just ignoring the counter-arguments because something doesn't go with your viewpoint. Acknowledging other viewpoints can make your argument stronger. It shows you've considered different perspectives and you've chosen your stance based on evidence. So, for example, you might write, while some studies suggest technology can distract students, others highlight its role in increasing engagement. So let's do some correction practice. This is my first sentence. Online classes are terrible for students. How can we improve this? Well, it's very emotional and absolute. It doesn't sound objective. The improved version. Technology is widely considered to enhance specific aspects of learning. This is much more academic because it shows cautious language and avoids overgeneralization. Another example, group work is always the best method. We can correct this. Group work can be effective in promoting collaboration when tasks are clearly defined. Every student loves technology. Once again, an overgeneralization, an opinion. Many students report, so as a report giving us information, many students report positive attitudes towards technology in education. So hopefully you see how the revised versions are more neutral, based on evidence, and use verbs or modal verbs that may, can, or might to show some balance. And we have come to the end of today's lesson. And what have we learnt in this lesson? We have been able to interpret and discuss academic data, and we've used this to build clear, persuasive arguments and to write with cohesion and precision. A bit of a homework task. I would like you to put together a short argument for or against this statement. All university students should complete internships before graduation. Thank you once again for joining us for this course. If you are signed up for the course, you already know this. You have got access to all of our worksheets plus a bonus workbook to go alongside the academic English course. If you're not signed up and you're watching on YouTube, hello, it's nice to see you. If you want to have instant access to all of the videos, we're going to have 9 videos in this course, in this series, and you'd like to have instant access to the workbook, the worksheets, and instant access to the videos, you can go to our Patreon page. It can be found at allmylinks.com/simple-ESL21, where you can also get money off tutoring, access to our other worksheets. The link is also in the description. But for those who already signed up, we're going to see you in our next lesson, and we're going to move on to part 5. Have a wonderful day, and we will speak to you soon.